Okay, so let's move on to a trending topic these days. So Corona or COVID-19. So it's making headlines every day. So my first question is directed to Dr. Hasith. So Doctor, what's your opinion on the impact of COVID-19 on health sector? So how do you think it has affected our health sector?
It's basically affected the health sector at all levels and in all fields. I was working in Colombo in the Children's Hospital at Lady Ridgeway when the pandemic first hit Sri Lanka. And then I moved on to Jaffna for a while. And so I saw the sort of impact that was caused in developed hospitals and in peripheries. And it was scary. Well, basically because it was a sort of an unexpected burden on unsuspecting stakeholders, all of us, from the hospital workers, doctors, nurses, healthcare workers, the community medicine practitioners, the medical technicians, support staff, and the general public, everyone. So we definitely had a very, very significant impact. But that being said, the great thing I saw was the dedicated effort that that everyone involved from the health sector and the other fields, how they managed to regroup and cope with the new challenges that were thrown up at us. And the amazing thing was we kept seeing innovative solutions being brought up for daily simple problems to complex issues, which definitely helped us to keep abreast of the demands that were placed upon the health sector. I could go on for hours, but I think we've all seen the effect that COVID had on the health sector in the media and in the newspapers. Hopefully, we are finally coming into terms with it, and hopefully we'll be able to proceed with much more comfort as time goes on with the vaccinations and the other protocols in place to control the pandemic. That's basically it. If you have any other questions on it, please feel free to ask.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hasith. As Dr. Hasith mentioned, there are already available innovations related to COVID-19. So my next question is to Dr. Ruwan. So Dr. Ruwan, what are some of the available innovations related to COVID-19 that are available in our country, and what needs to be improved in Sri Lanka, in your point of view?
All right. First of all, I have a disclaimer. I am in no way going to, claim myself as an expert about the innovations that has been there in Sri Lanka on COVID. So, but I can talk about the stuff that I know about, which are basically coming from the University of Peradeniya. I'm pretty sure the other universities and other organizations have also come up with many different innovations, because when innovations basically come out when there are external pressures, like just before the World War II, World War I, and when there was this Cold War, all these things, they are the ones that actually pushes us to innovation. So likewise here also, Sri Lankans, I think we are a little bit I would say, not that Sri Lankans are any less capable of doing things, because we can see our own people going abroad and contributing to many innovations. But in Sri Lanka, I think maybe the environment, there's something about that. We just enjoy our nice weather and the comforts and things like that. Maybe for some reason, we don't get killed if you don't innovate, like in cold place, countries where you have cold weather. So maybe we are a little bit behind, but still when we can get things from somewhere, we just, okay, since they are making it, we'll just get it. Right. But now at the start of this pandemic, everything was closed. No shipping was happening. So the biggest issue was that we couldn't get access to the basic things like even the face masks or the ventilators and things like that. We did not actually have a really hard hitting, start with COVID, unlike in many other places. But, we were we didn't know what we were at. We didn't know what is going to happen. This is the first time, I think, none of us who are living had experienced anything like this before. So we were not, we didn't know what to do. So, and then, probably, in hindsight, we wouldn't have had to be in a panic situation like what we have been, but anyways, we did. But that, I think, in a way is good, because then that spurred some innovations, right? So, for example, we could not get access to ventilators. So at Peradeniya, we tried to, we started designing one, because, we didn't know, when this was going to end, when we could get the ventilators, because everyone was trying to get the ventilators. So obviously, just like what happened with vaccines, the richer people, richer countries, they would get whatever the limited number of things. So we had to do whatever we could. So, but we know, ventilators are very sophisticated, complicated medical devices. So you can't do this overnight. It needs a lot of things. You can actually get something to work and do the stuff, but as a medical device, that's not enough. Because in a medical device, safety and effectiveness, those are the two key words. So effectiveness, probably we might be able to, get done with engineering knowledge and things like that. But safety, we need to be very, very careful, right? So it needs time to verify that things like so. So it's being designed and it's being built. But while this is, it takes some time to get something like that out to the market. But before that, we need to do something in anticipation of a surge in the number of ventilators. Now, by that time, I think the total number of ICU beds that we had, Hasith can correct me if I'm wrong, was somewhere around in the range of 500 to 700, in that range. And that was kind of like the same number of the ventilators that we had, out of which there was a large number of ICUs, ventilators that were not even functional, some issues. So the first thing that we thought was, okay, there were some non-functional ventilators. So what we did initially was we got them down to Peradeniya and we fixed them. And we were able to, I can't remember exactly how many, but I think about 50 ICU with ventilators we were able to fix and put to work by, I think, we started this project in, I think, April or so. April 2020, very early, and then by July also, August, I think we were able to put back to the system about 50 ventilators. My dates and numbers may be slightly off, but in that range. And then the students, I'm pretty sure everywhere the students also contributed. One of our students, one of the biggest issues the doctors faced was the lack of proper face masks, not the surgical masks, but the what I call this face masks, where you have the
face shields.
Face shield, exactly. That's the right word, I guess. Face shield. Yeah. So so one of our students, he basically designed and created a very cost-effective, cheap face shield, which we were able to quickly produce using some equipment, but the demand was so high, we were not able to actually cope with it. Even the students, not all the students were in. Universities were closed. Even it was like fully locked down. But we got some passes, and few of our staff members and the some students contributed to assembling them, and we were able to produce good enough number of these face shields, and also then the German tech, I think, pitched in production with their some of the facilities. So we were able to provide these face shields to the army and the military, as well as the doctors, the healthcare sector. That was, I think, until the real face shields, were produced in large scale, as well as imported later on. I think this was one of the, though it may not look like a big contribution, it was at that time. It was actually a very good contribution. And there were many, like remote patient monitoring systems and patient care systems and robots. There were several of such things. Mobile robot platforms were there, and also automatic hand sanitizers. Were done. These were small things. These were small things, but they actually at that by itself it may not have contributed much, but in terms of innovation, creation of the enthusiasm to innovate and things like that, I'm pretty sure that this COVID was a good push. And there was also another contribution from some researchers, like a research group which basically got some funding, foreign funding, to predict and model the COVID situation. And I think you can go to this website called covid.inch.pdn.ac.lk, where they have a portal where you predict using artificial intelligence, and with all the data from Sri Lanka as well as from other countries, they use predictions and things like that. I'm pretty sure there are other systems developed by other universities also. Unfortunately, what I can talk about is what I know. I'm pretty sure there are many other good work by other universities as well. And there was this nano mask by that was actually not a team of engineers. That were these were from science faculty and vet faculty. The low-cost COVID detection kit was also there. That was another innovation. So these kind of things were there. And I'm pretty sure after that there were a few other things as well, but I did not track everything. And I'm pretty sure there are many other, as I said, University of Moratuwa, University of UCSC, and University of Ruhuna, and many other places, as well as even the KDU and places like that. They may have developed many other things. Unfortunately, my knowledge about them is limited, so I'm not going to talk about much of it. If Dinithi or anyone else in the panel can contribute, please do so.
Thank you, Dr. Ruwan. That's a lot of information you shared. So yes, thank you very much for sharing. We are very happy to hear. Then my next question is to Mr. Keerthi. So like Dr. Ruwan mentioned, there have been many innovations that have been done by our undergraduates from universities all around the country, which are related to Corona, but we don't see much of them taken into the industrial level. So any reasons why this has happened? Can you comment on it?
Yeah. So it's like this, there are many reasons. Before I talk about that, I have a couple of things to add to Dr. Hasith and Dr. Ruwan's thing. So mainly when we talk about these innovations in the COVID pandemic, in other way, COVID may be the best thing that happens in the century, right? So we have never experienced, let's say, the vaccine, right? The vaccine was built in no time, right? So that's the kind of pressure came into the medical industry, and the medical industry's value. I mean, every government, every country has seen the importance of the medical industry. I mean, they were all pushing their militaries and their other industries forward, but medical industry was always on their cost sheet. So not in their, not taken as an asset. Now, the situation has changed. So now the medical industry is an asset, and now people are investing a lot, and they are getting ready for the next pandemics and innovations, and they understood what's the power of these innovations. So that's the eye-opening for the medical industry. So as biomedical engineers, we can take that benefit because biomedical engineers are the bridge in that engineering to the medical field. So that bridge can act very significantly with this new development. So then I'll come to the undergraduate problem. So when we see undergraduate innovations, so I see, a lot of enthusiasm, right? That's the best thing, right? A lot of students, they don't worry about the money, or they won't worry about what's the future going to be. They don't care about the business angle. And that enthusiasm is the killing, right? So when we want to think about a product, we don't think about what is the hardware cost, or not that thing. We should identify what is the problem that we are solving. So first thing is that what is the problem and how relevant that problem is. And that is what going to solve the issues of the people. So then it can affect the global audience, or it can affect a local specific audience. I don't know. But when you think about, especially when we are talking, here the audience is undergraduate. So we should know what we are doing when we are doing something like that. So when we innovate, we should think about the product, the problem we are addressing, and then what is the approaches we are taking to solve them, and what is the costs involved, how practical it is to implement in the real clinical environment, and then how sustainable it is, how many human resources are required to operate that solution, and what is the cost of it, what is the existing methods of solving the same problem. So likewise, you have to address the chain of questions. So when we do that proper analysis, then only the innovation can go to the next level. Otherwise, it will never go to the next level. So that's, that is part of this, part of this question. I may not be able to give you every answer without going through every project in detail, because each project has different problems, right? So in nutshell, this is the situation. So we should train our undergraduates to channel their strength into the right direction. So this is the direction. If we follow that direction, then their effort will, definitely become a success. Because innovation is not limited to a graduate or undergraduate. It's not something like that, right? You can even stay in the school and do innovation. It is not limited to any age or any education background. But first thing is to understand the right problem and the economic model around it. So then definitely you may not be the person who's implementing, other people will come after you to implement it. So that's very simple, because undergraduate innovations can become success. Even in our, I can take one of my example, Dr. Ruwan, when we were doing our the vestibular system test, the testing was done while we were undergraduate, but we kind of productize it in 1 or 2 years. We have to take a long journey. So that's how it will become a product. So there are many things like that. So even undergraduate students are trying new innovation. Even at the moment they are trying, right? Don't give up. You may not, understand the entire spectrum, but explore. Then you can understand, and then you can make it a success. So that is how the undergraduate innovations can come into the industrial level.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Keerthi. So my next question is directed to Dr. Hasith. So Dr. Hasith, what are the factors that you think should be considered when creating a patient monitoring system specifically for the COVID patients?
In fact, I think I'm just going to start off where Mr. Keerthi stopped. Affordability and the practicality of it. It's always, most of it is economic. So what we have seen is most of the things that we needed are available, but it's ill affordable. Either it was never available to us, or we ran out of it so quickly because of the unexpected burden, the numbers, we just couldn't keep up. So the patient monitoring systems are one of the main concerns, because one main issue is with COVID. We have to watch the people affected, the COVID-19 patients. Some of them recover better than others. Some need much more intervention. And on top of that, to monitor them, they are in isolated units. So sometimes telemetry is needed, and our monitoring systems were never designed to take patients' vitals and then transmit them to a distance where we could say the healthcare workers could safely monitor them. In a normal ICU, the doctors and the nurses would sometimes be sitting right in front of the patients and closely watching the patients and the monitors 24 hours. It was very easy. But with COVID-19, it wasn't like that. We had to develop new units where the patients were kept separately, and the healthcare workers could go in at times, but it was simply not practical for us to hang around continuously. And of course, you would have seen these PPE kits, these bunny suits with lots of face masks, face shields, respirator. It's so uncomfortable to be wearing them. And apart from the comfort, we are not able to operate at our optimal level. I have had to operate on tiny vessels using a microscope while wearing all those coveralls and face shields. They use Rufagap, our manual dexterity is less, so it's really a problem. So I think one main thing that we have to think about when we are developing patient monitoring systems is the practicality of it. I would probably be promoting things, something that is capable of having remote access, where like I said, the patient's vitals are being piped to a central hub or a center where the patients can be monitored, and we are able to access the patient quickly, but we are away and outside the isolation units. And of course, Dr. Ruwan mentioned that it's safety. It's not just the technology that it has to be reliable. We can't be dealing with patients' lives and suddenly having technical problems like a computer where we just reboot it and wait for it to start up again. Not an option. So it has to be reliable and safe. And on top of that, again, for COVID-19, the other problem is with regard to safety, some of these equipment have to be sterilized between patients. Just because it was used for a COVID-19 patient before, we can't just take it and plug it to the next patient. It doesn't work that way. So some of the disposable items that come into contact with the patient have to be affordable, have to be replaceable, or if they're not disposable or they're just too expensive to do that, to change between patients, they have to be sterilizable. So that's, I think, something the designers probably are already looking at, but I'm just highlighting the fact. And of course, these you would have seen the hospitals and the intermediate care centers being put up within weeks or days sometimes, and we sometimes have to move units even within the hospital as patient numbers go up, and sometimes when they go down, we have to reallocate areas. So these monitoring systems have to be portable. We have to be able to set it up in a place, and then again sometimes you have to dismantle it safely and then quickly set it up again as needed. And we might have to transport them certain distances, because if intermediate care center is set up at a distance from a hospital, these items will have to be moved. And of course, if you are trying to develop a new system that can be used in an existing center, these have to be compatible with the systems that are already available. Something as simple as not having a HDMI cable, which can fix the output from a unit to a monitor. We've had problems like that. Some of the operating microscopes we have a funny AV system. It is not universal, and we have the microscope and the camera. We have the widescreen TV which can accommodate the signal, but the connector is not available. So simple problems like that have caught up with us. And of course, overall, it has to be acceptable. What I mean is, if it's too complex, I mean, the healthcare workers, they are already burdened with patient care. And if they have to retrain themselves to access complex programs or designs which need a lot of work and effort to use, usually it doesn't go down well. I've seen in the already available multi-monitors, we hardly use maybe half the functions that are available because it's just too much of a burden, or a perceived burden, to go deep into the program and access those information, that information. So I think all of these things probably have to be considered if we are developing a patient monitoring system specifically for COVID. And I suppose it should be a sustainable thing. Hopefully we'll get over this pandemic and all of these innovations will probably, we might not need it, but we have to be ready. So whatever investments we make, I suppose should be sustainable and reusable and adaptable in a future situation, maybe the same, maybe something similar.
Yes, definitely, Doctor. So thank you for sharing that. So before we move on to the next set of questions, let's take a look at an advertisement from our gold sponsors, Bookbridge.
Are you looking for purpose and direction in life? We at Bookbridge offer you an action learning program in which you develop your business and leadership skills while creating social impact.
Bookbridge is a social enterprise in education. We have two impact areas. In emerging economies, we set up learning centers as social businesses. The goal here is to improve the job and life chances of young adults. Back in Europe, we make use of these learning centers as a platform for professionals to learn how to set up a business, how to manage an international project, and how to lead a virtual team responsibly. And while I was thinking on how we can bring in the social and economic dimension into management education, I thought that the best way would be to partner up with a business school. And this is how the linkage with WHU, Germany's top business school, came.
After 6 months of preparation, we finally arrived in Keerthi, which is a province where we'll set up our learning center. It's the middle of the dry season, temperatures well above 37 degrees. It is key to us to make this learning center a sustainable business and to make sure that it serves the needs and demands of the people that actually live here.
The major challenge was to really understand the community needs. We had to change our assumptions several times in order to really understand what people needed. So everything is very different here from what I know.
Our goal was not to build a charity organization, but a business that really makes a difference in the community of Keerthi. One of the major goals that we had was to develop a business plan that was not only self-sustained, but also has a lasting impact on the community. In doing this, I personally learned to combine existing ideas into new business models and defend these ideas in front of real investors.
This week I learned that in Cambodia they say children move like a bucket of crabs, and it was great to see it put into action at the opening ceremony when all the children were running around and running into our learning center and claiming it as their own.
I'm Sujita Miranda, the country manager and managing director of Bookbridge Sri Lanka. In Bookbridge, we have a very unique program called Startup Business Program. This program is run together with Startup Academy Switzerland and Bookbridge Sri Lanka. There are 5 phases in this program, including a 5-day residential camp and international mentorship. The uniqueness of the program is that the 5-day residential camp is facilitated by local and international facilitators, and then the international mentors will be supporting the entrepreneurs to create a business plan.
I can only recommend signing up for these courses. You will not only build your skills, but you will also get the chance to pitch for an investment into your business idea, as well as you will become part of our global family of bridge builders. Sign up now.
Okay, so let's move on to the next set of questions. So as Dr. Hasith mentioned, there is a list of things that we have to consider when making a patient monitor. So my next question is Dr. Ruwan. So Dr. Ruwan, when creating a patient monitoring system, what are the challenges faced from an engineer's perspective, and how can we overcome these problems? We'd like to know from with your experience how to overcome these problems.
Right. The issue is this: there is no one way. The simple answer is it's each problem, each issue, you have to know the background and what the issues are. Because technology is available mainly, right? But as Hasith correctly pointed out, it's economics that matters, right? So economics as well as we don't have access to what we want when we want at the correct price. So that is the issue, right? Now it's an optimization problem. You can, if I'm pretty sure, all these undergraduates, if they are interested about biomedical engineering, they may be building all sorts of biomedical devices, like instruments like EEG machines, ECG, that kind of things, or even some other types, with maybe 1,000, 2,000, maybe 3,000 rupees. But if you go to the market, you would say an EEG machine or an ECG machine would cost thousands of dollars. Why is this disparity, right? Why is it, if one might ask, if we can build this system that performs fairly well, comparable, maybe not as good as a certain branded device, but you can get the same signal. The information is what matters, right? So the same information from the ECG or EEG or whatever it is that you are interested about, you can build a low cost. I have seen so many, including even my own papers, we talk about low cost devices. That is possible, right? That the undergraduate level, we can do that. The issue though is that cost is only one side of it. The low cost comes at a cost, right? The cost is safety and reliability. As Hasith also rightly mentioned, we need to, that additional cost comes at that, because there's a medical device. I'm pretty sure Keerthi knows this very well, but because they are really making medical devices now. The regulations, I think in Sri Lanka, we don't have that much regulations, but if you are planning to sell it in US or other countries, EU or Japan or any other Western country, that's where the bulk of the cost is, right? So when the undergraduates, or at research level, the proof of concept level, when we get the functionality, it's pretty low cost, yeah. But when it comes to the actual use case, that doesn't serve the service. Maybe in an emergency, yes, right? So, for example, in this pandemic, either you have to take a risk and use these low-cost, unproven, half-baked cakes, or you just let the patient die anyways. So therefore, and even in the battlefield, sometimes these things happen. These things, it's a risk. You have to manage the risk, and it's a risk benefit thing. You have to see what it is. So not just in COVID, in any situation, you have to see how much budget you have, what are the minimal things? Because a lot of these things that these devices, high cost devices, they have huge number of different features. We don't need all these features. We just need some basic functionality, right? Whether can we get this basic functionality with reasonable safety, a reasonable cost, and also more than anything else, what the doctor or whoever the user wants. You can, as engineers, we can build whatever the functionality into it. We think, the best example, I think Hasith can correct me if I am wrong, is the stethoscope, the electronic stethoscope, right? When you take an electronic stethoscope, when you wear the normal acoustics one, there's this rubber tube. When you listen to the heart through this, the sound changes. There's the channel. There's a transfer function, so that the sound actually gets modified. So if you take a microphone and record the heartbeat or whatever the sounds that's coming in, and give that you can even modify it. You can improve the quality and do whatever it is and give it to a doctor, a medical practitioner. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't get it. He doesn't want it. He wants that sound, modified sound, because that is on what he is trained on, right? We need to understand that. So maybe there's more information in that electronic stethoscope, the sound that comes from it, but that is not what it is. So most of the stethoscopes that you have, electronic ones even, you have at least the option of inserting that additional transfer function. Why? That actually reduces the information. Why would you do it? Because that's a human factor. We are the doctors are trained on it. Obviously, you can have decision support systems. We give more information. You have nice displays. You do all sorts of artificial intelligence or other signal processing things, and give additional information for the doctors to base their decision on. But we still have to give that basic functionality what they are expecting, not what we think they want. Right. So that is another very important thing that we are actually not looking into when we are designing things for some community. That is exactly why in a biomedical environment, which is basically a very multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary field, you just, someone who is an engineer, maybe he's the best signal processing guy. He may be the best electronics guy. You cannot be a good biomedical, you cannot serve the purpose. You still need someone with medical knowledge. That is where the doctors have to come. You have to have a doctor who might use this thing, because you may know your domain, but you are going to give it to someone who is going to use in a different way. If you have not been in that position, it's very difficult to actually empathize with what he might need. So therefore, these kind of things, when we are designing, we need a good team, not just engineers. We need managers. We need economists. We need specifically for this one, we need doctors. Without them, there's no point in actually. You have to have a doctor in this group. Actually, not any doctor, someone who actually works on these kind of things. So likewise, we need to have. So what is lacking, if you ask, if I answer your question, we need to bridge this gap where we have to first identify what is the problem. Ask the question, what is the problem, and then solve it and verify that you have solved it. So that's validation. You check with the person who uses it to see whether you have addressed his need. You have to design it right. That is the verification. And you have to design it right, as well as you have to design the right thing. Whether you have designed it right and whether you have designed the right thing. And that is verification, validation. You have to validate with the right application using some real user. So then only you can actually make sure this device is proper. Okay. So, I see very often a lot of undergraduates and even postgraduate students, they come up with really genius ideas. These are very nice ideas, and they publish good papers in highly reputed journals, and that's it. And they're happy with it. They are not interested, or maybe they move on. So there is this nice knowledge created, but it doesn't only very few. Just people like only Keerthi and few others may actually take the extra burden to take it up to the product level. It's actually not just the students. Even we are guilty of that. That's probably we in Sri Lanka, we still don't have that ecosystem well established. It's very difficult. You have to learn. There's a lot of things to learn. It's not the engineering. It's just the outside the engineering that is hard for us, right? So if you don't have the right people to work with, it's very difficult to convert this brilliant idea into something useful for the world. So that is where I think the issue comes. So that is where the networking works. Right? I think events like this are very useful in that sense, where we have to. The doctors have plenty of issues. If you are working in a hospital, especially in Sri Lanka, there are plenty of issues. And if the engineers know these problems, they probably have very simple solutions. But we don't have that bridging. We don't bring engineers and doctors together. This is the issue. So I think it's not the technology. Technology is actually, a lot of technology doesn't even need research. It's just the application of technology. Most of the time, it's just in villages, you don't patent things, right? The Basunnehe, when he wants to do something, he invents something and then uses it, and that's it, right? So likewise, there are people doing that, but we have the minds to do that, but we don't connect the right people into the problem and the solution. We don't bring together. That's the issue, I think. Not so much about what we should think about, rather than we should bring right people together. I think that's the number one issue as I see it. And of course, regulation and safety, those things are very serious things that we need to think about. And in Sri Lanka, so far, I don't think we have the right framework so far, not much, not enough developed.
Thank you, Dr. Ruwan. So I think collaboration is the main key. Okay, so my next question is to Dr. Hasith. So what are the like Dr. Ruwan mentioned, there are things that the engineers don't see, but being a person in the medical sector, the doctors can see them. So what are the problems in the medical sector that are missed by the eye of an engineer?
I would probably say it's not that it's missed by the engineers. They I suppose see quite a lot, but it's probably because we tend to engage with the issues that are more eye-catching and more sensational. Like Dr. Ruwan said, we would probably tend to take the most obvious or the most sensational, or the media and the public perception also plays quite a lot in that. We tend to grab the most, I keep saying this word, the most sensational problem and try to solve that, when we are leaving quite a lot of the other viable options behind. And the problem with these orphaned issues are that they are sometimes the more pressing and the more practical problems that we can solve. If I may, I'll give a small example. In one theater where I worked, there used to be a side door, not the main door. There used to be a side door leading to a storeroom, and that door could swing both ways. It was auto closing, so you could either push or pull on both sides. Unfortunately, because of some design error, the floor on the side of the theater was too high. So every time somebody mistakenly pulls that door towards the theater, there was a bone-jarring screech. And say if we are operating, we used to jump at best, and it was so discomforting. So we had been calling the maintenance crew to come and sort it out, but they also said, no, the only option is to remove the door, because there's no way they could adjust the height of the floor. So can you guess what we did? Remember, the door could be opened both ways. And the problem is only when the door opens towards the theater, when it's pulled. Any guesses on how we sorted it out? It just took a single screwdriver. We removed the handle that could be used to pull the door on the side of the theater. So nobody had the option of pulling it inwards, and no more jarring. In fact, somebody later came and said, but if somebody pushes from the other side, what we did was we just pasted some rubber stoppers from bottles on the handle on the other side. So anybody who's pushing on that side would tend to feel like, get reminded, don't push, only pull. Problem solved. So I think the issue is finding a problem that we can tackle and then applying a solution that is practical. So apart from that was a very low tech issue. I'm sorry I dwelled down to that level, but just to show that sometimes just because we have the tools to solve problems, in surgery there's a saying, we have to hit the proper nail with the proper hammer. So just because we have so many instruments, we don't need to use all of them, but we have to have the toolbox available, because when we do need that particular tool, there is no going back. We need that expertise or that technique or that skill to tackle that problem. So I think Dr. Ruwan mentioned about the dispensers for disinfectant for hand washing. There you go. I worked in so many hospitals, so many theaters. Even in the last hospital that I worked at, we had automatic units that dispensed water and soap whenever we requested. But it was, I think, a motion sensor. But the problem was, most of those were either not functioning because they were not serviced, or they just didn't have the expertise to repair those. I'm pretty sure that we can come up with a solution for those. If you do a simple audit of the hospitals that are having this issue, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to come up with a low cost and practical application that can sort this. Just one more thing, if I may, because there's so many things that I could complain about. But one thing again in theaters or in clinic settings we have is the information displays. We need to have some patient information, maybe X-ray imaging or lab report that we need to access while doing a procedure. And of course, the X-ray illuminators are on the walls, and we have to walk up to it. And it's a little bit of a difficult thing to do when we have our hands inside a patient's abdomen. So what we tend to do is we tend to ask somebody to just bring the X-ray and hold it up to the lamp on the ceiling so that we can look at the X-ray. Maybe smart displays which can be very easily integrated and that can zoom in or out with a very user-friendly interface that can be used for our hospitals. That would probably be very useful. There are lots more things that can be mentioned, but just to show you that there are applications that can be used at all levels, from a broken door to digital displays. I'm sure the audience here will be able to pick up on problems and develop solutions for any number of these practical problems we have in the hospital and the healthcare system. Dinithi, that's basically all I want to describe on it, because Unless Dr. Ruwan or Mr. Keerthi, if you have anything to add, your personal experience
Yeah,
of
course,
handling.
Of course, Doctor, we can add. I think Dinithi is experiencing some of the difficulty, I guess. Dinithi, are you there? So, yeah.
Yes, I got disconnected.
Okay, until
that.
Yes,
definitely.
I want to add a small thing. I mean, Doctor, the thing is, when we look at those kind of issues, don't worry, the solutions are coming. I mean, most of the time you will be getting those units to your specs. So it's like, say for example, if you want to see the X-ray, you just have to wear some specs, and the solution will come in a Google Glass kind of thing. So that level of technology will be enabled very soon. But when I talk about this clinical environment, especially the thing we should understand is, as engineers, I mean, whenever doctor says we need this, we should not go and do it, right? So I just want to say that, don't take me wrong. So it's not, I mean, they're not buying in that way, right? You have to understand what is the exact problem that they are facing and what's the way to solve it. So then only they buy it, and it has to go through a procedure. I mean, they can't, I mean, buy it to the hospital from their own pockets. They have to go through all the processes, and that's how it happens. And your solution should cater into all those aspects. So, otherwise, you won't be, I mean, it's the solution. Otherwise, like Dr. Ruwan also said, you will not be facing the right level of safety measures, and then you may not be addressing the exact solution also. However, it is very important to understand, I mean, the sample properly. Maybe Dr. Hasith wants something, and the similar person who's in the same domain need small, I mean, change, I mean, same thing, but with small changes. Likewise, we have to do that analysis first, and then we have to follow that process. So it's not something new you should follow, just the engineering practice, that's it. So simple engineering practice. As an engineer, we should not be doing the best technology solution. That is not engineering. So we have to do the technology, economy, and the social. All three aspects has to be addressed here. So then only we'll be giving the best engineering solution. So that is how we should think in every solution. So I'm just jumping into your thing. So Dinithi, you can continue. Yeah.
Yes, actually, my next question is to you, Mr. Keerthi. So,
okay.
So what we want to know is, so what is the level of medical technology currently available in our country? And also, we would like to know how it will be improved in the coming years.
Okay, it's a broad question actually. So when it comes to the medical technology, there are institutes that are doing innovations, and the universities are also building new technologies. Most of our researchers are publishing in the well-recognized journals and the conferences, and no doubt new innovations are coming, new knowledge is being built. But technologically, we are not developing the proper products yet. So that is where the gap is, right? So that is the platform that we are also trying to build here. I mean, say for example, if we are conducting the same level of research in US, so we might be able to get them into the product level very soon, because they have that platform, right? So that is what they did about 30 years before, right? But the thing is, any country, we have to do that investment at some stage. And certain people like industry, the government, the academia, all have to work together and build that platform. Now say, when we do this US patent for our Gendo product, so it's a long journey. We didn't have the supporting lawyers in Sri Lanka. So we hired them from Singapore. So likewise, not just the Sri Lankan thing, right? So we have to hire people, all around the world, and then develop something. So then only you can build a world-class thing. It's not a small thing. When you're developing a medical product, to be precise, you have to think in that way. Otherwise, your medical product can be challenged in various stages. All your effort will go in one fraction of seconds, right? So what's the the most important thing is, so you have to identify what is the level of technology that we can bring in. When we, your original question was to understand what is the technology level we are in. For that particular question, my answer is, we know the technology, but we don't know how to productize it. That's why we don't see our technology industry is not happening. But we have best, inventions, I would say, not innovations. Most of the best inventions we have, right? So then, like you asked, we can improve, and that is what we are doing at the moment. And we are not just saying, we are trying to prove that by doing the practical things, right? So by developing that platform, now we see a lot of undergraduates are here, so you can benefit from that platform. Say, if we had to spend about 5 years to do something, you might be able to do it within 3 years, because you will not be making the mistakes that we did, or you will not be going through the harsh process that we followed, but you will be following different harsh processes at different stages, and you will be doing different mistakes, right? And do those mistakes, that's perfectly fine. And that's how we bring new knowledge to the industry. So the technology will move on. So that is where we are at the moment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keerthi. So before we move on to the next questions, we have an advertisement from our platinum sponsor, Unilever.
Job titles, they're not a big deal these days. Not to us, anyway. Because we know that you're much more than just a few words. You've got spark, ambition, drive, passion. You want to feel proud of what you do and make others proud of you too. You want to make a difference in the world and have real impact. Whether you're a human spark igniter or a green planet saver, or developing your career as a disruptive digital leader, you know what you care about, and you put it first, because what matters most is what you do. We put labels on our products, not our people. So bring change, make an impact, and be inspired to be your best self. To us, you are more than your job title.
Okay, so let's move on to the rest of our discussion. Okay, so my next question is to Dr. Hasith. So your one of your areas of expertise is in the area of prosthetics. So how developed is the current prosthesis used in Sri Lanka? And also, like, what's stopping us from using more advanced prosthesis?
I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I've handled a few patients where they have had to have prostheses at all levels. What I mean by all levels is, in Sri Lanka, we do have examples of prostheses, from the cosmetic prosthesis, the non-functional, just the appearance part of it, to the passive prostheses, which don't move on their own, or they don't have any mobility within the prosthesis, but they're just as support for the function. What I mean is simply a leg prosthesis which doesn't have any moving ankle or knee joints, or a hand prosthesis which is static and able to accommodate maybe a very basic tool like a handle, but doesn't move at all. So those prostheses are, I think, what are most widely seen in our setup. That being said, we do have the mechanical prosthesis being used, the body powered and also the internally powered prosthesis. And I have seen several myoelectric prostheses being used for being utilized by patients who unfortunately we couldn't save the limbs that were traumatized and injured. So the entire spectrum is there. It's just that we are at different levels of utilization at the moment. The biggest barrier again is of course economics. It's just not affordable. Right now, the cosmetic prosthesis, simply a finger digit, phalanx, maybe 2 phalangeal cosmetic prosthesis, which are made so lifelike with the silicon material and the sometimes hand painted. The products are durable and very realistic, but they cost anywhere from several thousand rupees to up to 100,000 rupees, depending on the quality that the client is looking for. So even within that little bit of range, there is a little bit of product that there is such a large range. And the myoelectric prosthesis, the hand prosthesis that I mentioned, I saw being installed for one client, one patient, that cost somewhere in the range of a small car in terms of Sri Lankan rupees. And I'm pretty sure that person wouldn't have been able to afford it on his own unless he was sponsored by his employer. He got an electrocution injury. He and a few of his colleagues got an electrocution injury at the same time while working, and 2 of them lost lower limbs. They had to have one leg amputated, 2 of them, and 1 lost a hand. So they got prosthesis fitted, and because the cost was borne by the employer. But one main issue is the cost, definitely. Probably the biggest problem is that, and the most obvious answer is that to your question. That being aside, of course, we do have a gap between the user and the supplier. We see so many patients who have had finger injuries who would probably benefit even from a cosmetic type of prosthesis, because even though the joints don't move, simply the gap of a finger, distal part of a finger being filled, has a functional benefit as well, even though we call it cosmetic. A finger prosthesis of 2 phalanges which doesn't move but is designed exactly at the angle that they might need to use a pen to write with a pen, that goes a long way for them. So still, some of these clients, some of these patients don't have the knowledge or the access to the supplier. They don't even know that these things are available. We are at that stage in some of our hospitals now, where our rehabilitation units try to get these patients linked with the industry, the suppliers, so that they benefit from the products that are already available. So I think the cost is one main issue. And the other problem is having a connection between the user and the producer. And lastly, I suppose the biggest problem, not just in prosthetics, even in the other medical technology equipment that we're using, is maintenance. In fact, we have had such a lot of donations of very worthwhile, very useful equipment, where the disposable items that need to be either the chemicals or the connectors or whatever that are consumables, they run out. The donation comes with a certain amount of these consumables, but they run out, and then we just can't afford the use to use the equipment anymore, because we can hardly afford the consumables later on the equipment, and then that's kept aside, and we lose out on that resource. So I think the running costs, the maintenance and the services, that also I think has to be considered when we are thinking of developing any technology from low end to high end in our setup, especially.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Hasith. So my next question is to Mr. Keerthi and also to Dr. Ruwan. When we are when we are producing when we are doing research and when we are in the production market of medical devices, it is very important that the engineers and also the researchers connect with the patients. So how do we get the ethical clearance? So I think that is very important for our audience here today.
Right. So Dinithi, ethical clearance, now typically what we have is there are ethical clearance boards, like what are called IRBs, institutional review boards, right, where they have a panel of experts. You have to give a very detailed and very specific protocol, like, this is what we are going to do. These are the kind of risks that these subjects might have to face. And this is how we are going to handle our data. This is how we are protecting the identities and all sorts of things. This is exactly the, this is what, we are going to, explain the risks about this experiment to the patient, and this is the form they will be signing. Likewise, there is a proposal that we write, an application that you have to provide. Typically, that the universities, typically, if you have a medical faculty, they have an institutional review board. There are some other faculties also, like, for example, allied health sciences, where you use either animal subjects or human subjects. There are ethical review boards, IRBs, institutional review boards are there. So wherever you have research that involves human or animal subjects, there will be, you have to have, such things. Anyways, if you don't have it, you can't, you can't publish your work. So if you are, mainly when you are doing research, you have to, what you want is mainly to publish, right? So therefore, you should have the ethical review, this IRB approval has to be there. So for this, you have to have this ethical review board, institutional review boards for the institutions. If you don't have that, what then you can do is you can collaborate with some other institute. For example, if there is no medical faculty in your university, then you can collaborate with either a hospital or a university where you have some medical research, where they have ethical review board, institutional review board. So then you will get one of the collaborators from their unit, not necessarily, but it would make your life easy, because otherwise you might not be able to convince the board that you have the expertise to actually to look after all the requirements. So therefore, typically there are collaborators coming from medical field and any other field for that matter, and then so once you convince the ethical review board, you have your ethical clearance. So once you have the clearance, you can actually do the experiments on subjects or whatever, the human subjects or animal subjects. But if you are planning to change it, if you plan to change, say for example, you halfway through you realize, okay, this protocol might not work. I need to improve this a little bit. Then of course you have to go back to the ethical review board and then apply and get an amendment. So otherwise, if something goes wrong, as long as things don't go wrong, people may actually say, okay, I just used that and did this. But then if something goes wrong, you will be in big trouble. So therefore, it's always good to have this ethical clearance, especially if you plan to publish your work. You have to have it in reputed journals. plus, it's for the same. As I said, safety is a very important thing. These ethical reviews, the main objective is the safety of the subject. So whether it is the human subjects or the animal subjects, so there are certain ethical guidelines that you need to use. So that is there.
Okay,
I don't know if I answered your question.
Can I add to that?
Definitely.
Okay. Doctor, mainly when we since Doctor told what is the ethics review and what is the role of ERC committee and all, now it's clear. I will bring some practical aspect of it. So when we go through the ERC committees, they'll have certain level of evaluations, plus they will validate the entire concept with the protocol. So that is very important for your research. Don't take the ERC committee as a burden. So ERC committee is an opportunity for your research every time. So once you get the ERC approval, you go to the clinical trial registry, right? As SLMA. So then you have to register there. So then only you can go to the hospital and do the real test, and it will be important. Say if you are applying for further things like NMRA or things like that, you need all these things, right, in proper order. And then you have to get the institutional approval at the hospital level. Say, for example, if you're performing it at NHSL, right? So the NHSL director has to approve it from the ethics committee of the hospital as well. So they need the ethics approval. So I'd recommend University of Colombo ethics review, University of Peradeniya ethics review, and the Ministry of Health ethics review committee. So likewise, there are committees who are actively doing a lot of, every university, every medical faculty has it. I'm not saying, so they don't have, but try to use, the ethics review committees that are doing a lot of work, and then you will get a very thorough evaluation about your research. Then during ethics review process, your protocol will be evaluated and it will be corrected, right? So that will help you to avoid a lot of issues and get your research validated and save a lot of money, right? And the other thing is, I think when you are asking about the technology thing, I missed a couple of things which I want to add here, since we are running to the latter part of our discussion. Now, when we think about the technological level we are having in Sri Lanka, like we said, we have new innovations, but we should understand what part of new technological innovations we can add to these medical domain problems, right? Now, say if we are having a very good knowledge about the image analysis, so then sometimes we may be able to add that part to the existing medical product. Now, that is the kind of approach we should think. And this message I want to give to the medical, biomedical students, since Dr. Ruwan previously addressed about how we should approach the economic aspects and how we should think about a medical product. So I would say, when you are thinking of developing some existing product in a lower budget, I would not say it is impossible. It is possible, but try to understand which part of the cost you are reducing, right? So say if it is India, they have a lot of human labor. They can turn down the cost from that side, right? So if we are going to apply a new method of doing the thing, now say for example, if we have a very good level of analytics, sometimes the device analytics part we can take into the cloud, right? Likewise, you can take different measures to reduce the cost. I'm answering to a different question now, right? So I hope audience is following. So likewise, if we are to do that proper process, you will be able to build competitive product. I mean, not just new innovations, you can innovate new products to the existing markets as well, right? So that is what some of the companies are doing in the world. So as Sri Lanka, we should understand what is the level of expertise that we can bring, right? So that part we should understand as biomedical engineers, and I believe very potential people are here. So in future, you can do a lot of things, right?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Keerthi. We have had a very long discussion and a very interesting discussion, but unfortunately, like we run out of time. So I'd like to present some of the questions that the audience have directed. So we'll move on to the first question. So this question is for Mr. Keerthi. So what the particular person has been asking is, since the undergraduates have the potential and enthusiasm for innovation, why can't the industry collaborate with the universities to shape up the undergraduate projects to industry level? By this way, can't we have practical innovations of our own?
Okay, I think that's one of the very good questions I was expecting from the audience, and that's the way we did also. So it's I mean, we always more than love to do that kind of engagements, right? Undergraduates has young blood and they have time, they have enthusiasm, but they need the proper direction and the experience, right? So as the industry, we see that as opportunity, but graduate should understand this. They should have the vision to make that product a success, right? And they should have that dedication, right? If they don't have that, our engagement will fail, right? So most of the time, the companies have very, risk aversive method of approaching undergraduates because of this reason, because they always come and say, we have exams, we have assignments, we can't deliver. The industry is not taking that word, right? So when I was doing, undergraduate studies, I was giving my top priority to the industrial work and academic work, and then a lot of time I was getting blamed. So that's perfectly fine, because that was my vision. I wanted to become an industrialist, and so that's the way my team was also thinking, right? And we were collaborating with the companies because we saw our lecturers could bring us a lot of knowledge. So they were driving us with new concepts. So we were learning all those things from them. Plus the industry collaboration. As much as possible, we wanted to get industry collaborations at that time, because undergraduate life is the life that we can capitalize, right? So during that time, no one is expecting a single penny from us. They all spend on us, even Mahapula and everything. Even, you have this great period, right? So people say Sri Lanka has a education system which lags you, right, to take you to the industry, but Sri Lanka is the opportunity. Sri Lanka keeps you in this system, right, until up to the age 24, 25, so that you can explore, right? You can explore various methods and you can collaborate. Industry is always happy to take this kind of undergraduates and explore new products. Say from second year onwards, you can engage with the companies. Now, I'm not just saying this. When I'm taking interns, right? That is the only time that I can get the dedicated people, right? Dedicated undergraduate. So I can't expect the undergraduate to be dedicated because I know the curriculum is up and everything is there. But during the time that they have the internship, we have a program to drive them to do even publications in the respective journals, right? Not just developing the prototype or anything, right? They develop, they collaborate, and they do it to the international level. So that is what we can do within that 6 months period, right? If they are willing to stay for like 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, I mean, industry is paying also, right? We are not saying that you are doing all those things for free. That's not the case, right? You might be having, I mean, if you are coming with ideas, industry is willing to invest also, right? So that is how we did. When we had ideas, we brought it to the industry, and then industry, I mean, was more than happy to take us in. I mean, not only the private companies, even government institutions for funding. So that's the level we can do as undergraduates and graduates, right? If we have the right vision and the right passion, I mean, not just the vision, we have to have that passion to execute it, right? So I think I answered your question. So that is perfectly possible, but two things, right? You have to have that dedication and that passion, right? Then we can do.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Keerthi. So we have another question. The question is, I have heard a saying that the best time to do mistakes is when you are an undergraduate, and you cannot do any mistakes when you are in the industry. Is it true?
You can do mistakes at any point of your life, but the return will be the different. So that is the thing. So there's a cost of every mistake, right? So when you are an undergraduate, you are branded as a undergraduate. You mean, I mean, branded as a student. And when you are branded as a student, you are expected to do mistakes, right? So when you do things right, we take it as bonus, right? So when you are a graduate, your brand is gone as student, then you are a professional. So professional can't do mistakes as granted. So when you do mistakes, it will be your fault and it will go to your personal file.
Yes, thank you very much for answering that. So the next question is directed to Dr. Ruwan. So how can we use the existing research to create a product?
Sorry, Dinithi, I didn't hear you, your last part.
Yeah, so the question is, how can we use the existing research to create a product?
Existing research to create a product?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, so now, as I see it, as I mentioned before also, there are lots of new, very groundbreaking things that every year undergraduates, come up with. They publish these things in, international journals, well-reputed journals and things like that. After that, a lot of people, they move on either to higher studies or even to industry, and they don't, they think the publication is the end. But unfortunately, that should be the start, in my opinion. So that the publication validates your idea, and the community is accepting that idea, and now, which means you have a bigger contribution to make to the society. Because all we do, what we are trying to do as engineers is to serve the society, right? Engineers make the world has never been, right? So what we want to do is to make this a better society. So if you just publish a paper, of course, if someone picks it up and then continues, yeah, maybe you have done your role and someone has, continued it. But the chances are, if most of the time, this might actually doesn't even get noticed most of the time. So therefore, maybe your very good idea would not actually serve the humanity as it should. So if you can actually, because I think traditionally in Sri Lanka, we like stability, right? So we don't like stability is low risk. Of course, low risk comes with low return, right? So if you want a high return, you have to take high risk. So people want to go into an established institute and then get settled as an engineer and then a manager and climb up the normal, just kind of very traditional path of engineers. Rather than that, I think if we can encourage the students to take this, because every year I see so many new good ideas. There's a lot of potential. You can take these ideas and try to improve. One issue is that our support system in Sri Lanka is actually very discouraging. I see that. So we need to actually we have to develop an ecosystem in Sri Lanka. There are some venture capitalists and so people who would like to give some hand, but still it's very hard to actually figure out how to do the next thing. So you have proven a concept. Now how do you take this from this conceptual level to the product level? That gap is too much right now in Sri Lanka. So one thing is we need to have some, compared to 10 years back, it's a lot better now, but still, it's still not enough. That critical mass is not there to push things forward, easily. So therefore, the students or the, even, graduate students, they are not fully confident that they might be able to make a good living and a contribution if you just take that path. So therefore, not just as universities, as a whole, like engineers, the industry, the government, the policymakers, everyone should get together and create this ecosystem which encourages this. Now, what I see right now in Sri Lanka, we have been and we are a developing country, though we have some, in numbers, we have, middle income country or whatever it is. So if you look at the people, this is not going to the people. Some, the richer rich gets richer, and the poor is getting poorer, kind of situation, right? So what we should do is we should contribute back to the economy of the Sri Lanka also. What I see, I take this opportunity to say this also. In Sri Lanka, though we produce a lot of engineers every year, maybe 2,000, maybe even more, from government universities, where do they end up? Right? Some people end up in government jobs, some people in private sector, yes, but there's a large number of people. I think about maybe 25 to 50% within 10 years, they leave the country. And they leave the country, they don't contribute economically to the country, they contribute economically to the other countries, for which, here our poor taxpayers have paid them to become engineers, expecting a return. But these people, they go to developed countries and they contribute to their economies at no cost for that country. I think there is a huge issue with this model. I'm not saying it is bad for the graduates to leave the country. I think if there is not enough opportunities or a space for them to actually contribute and live a good life, then it's their right to actually find some place which they can be happy about. But what I'm saying is we need to identify why this happens, and we should provide an opportunity for them to thrive in Sri Lanka and contribute back to Sri Lanka. And even so, now let's say biomedical engineers, we have enormous potential to create biomedical engineers and biomedical engineering products and biomedical engineering contribution in Sri Lanka, but that ecosystem is not there. So what happens is most of the engineers, especially biomedical engineers, would get frustrated within the very first few years and they would leave, because you don't have to take up this these problems. You just go to Singapore, you go to UK, you go to USA, Australia. You get paid very well, and you get recognized. The life is easy, and you make good money. You contribute to the society. But here, it's a continuous fight against the system, right? So what I think is, from very top, there should be a policy level decision with the consultation of all the stakeholders, the universities, the students, the industry, the doctors, and everyone, to identify the opportunities and to figure out what needs to be done to use our brains in Sri Lanka. Because the cream of the crop actually leaves the country after they graduate. If you look at all the, they go for higher studies, and after that they don't return. That's fine. You can do a lot to the country while serving in other countries. That is also fine, but we have to have a good model, in my opinion, to bring back that return back to Sri Lanka. So as there are a lot of undergraduates here who I'm pretty sure are highly with a lot of potential, I would like to kindly request you to, even if you go abroad, please serve the country, because it's the poor taxpayers who have supported most of your education. So we all learn, we came to this position, we earned our degrees from the taxpayers' money, most of us. So we have an ethical obligation to give something back to them, in my opinion. So if we can, I don't know, I think I may have diverged from your question, Dinithi, but I apologize for that. But I really wanted to make this opportunity to appeal to the audience to actually try to contribute back to the country. We can point fingers at politicians and all these people. That doesn't solve the problem. We know there's a problem, but let the problem be there, but we'll try to do our best to help this country come out of this pathetic situation that we are in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ruwan, for that comment. So we have run out of our time, unfortunately.
Dinithi, I have one more
yes,
thing.
definitely.
It's not, only 1 minute. So since you asked, about the industry, I told you about the mistake that can happen in the industry may affect you. But the thing is, when we are running, don't get afraid and don't think it in a negative manner. So when we are running it in a innovative environment, mistakes are acceptable, right? So mistakes is the one that happens when you are trying new things. So it's depend to the company to company and the project to project and the industry to industry. So so when you are going to the industry, you have to select the area that will suit you, right? And then it will help you to grow, develop your career. So that's what I want to say about that. And the other thing is, when you think about the country as a whole, Dr. Ruwan clearly mentioned we have to build this country, and the main thing is when you contribute to this country and when you become the top of the field in this country, it will help you to develop your career in the international arena also. Don't take what other countries give you as granted. It's just a small token for you to come there and experience that luxury, but it will not be your end, right? So you have to think about your passion and what you can bring to the world. So we are, when we come in, when we step into the engineering faculty, we should think what is the expertise we have and what we should bring to the world. So we can use this opportunity and do it. And the other thing is, when you go for the comfort, when you are going for low risk opportunity, you think it's a low risk opportunity when you are going to a job, but it's not a low risk thing when you're going there. So, from my understanding, going for that kind of 8 to 5 job may be a riskier thing for you. You can become a researcher, you can become a company owner, right? Sometimes, all of us can become entrepreneurs. It doesn't matter. We can hire foreigners, right? So, some people ask, when all become entrepreneurs, what will happen, right? So it's okay. You hire from India, right? So there are enough people. So there are opportunities. So likewise, for an undergraduate or for a graduate who has that domain expertise, the less riskier thing is to start something on your own, right? So when you go to an organization and you become to be a pourer, right? So you will be fired, right? So the thing is, when you are going to an organization, you have to adapt to that organization, and that's how you have to work. So in that case, you have to think the areas you should select and areas you can master. Right? So based on that, the country doesn't matter. So you can do it in Sri Lanka, or you can do it in UK, you can do it in US, doesn't matter. So don't afraid to the industry also. So the industry is industry is a place that you can shine. So that's what I wanted to say as the closing remarks. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So Dr. Hasith, we would like to also know your final thoughts on our event today.
First of all, thank you very much for inviting us again, and it was really interesting. And I believe the main point that was said again and again is that there has to be a collaboration and proper selection of interventions that we want to do, and for them to be practical and sustainable, and to select the battles, but to try our best to exceed in what we do. In fact, I used to have a mug in one of the theaters I used to work. It said, sometimes we win, sometimes we learn. So I think I always had that thought in mind whenever attempting something out of our comfort zone. So I think I just don't have anything more to add. I think everything was said. It's just to take everything to heart and to innovate and to succeed.